How's it going, guys? Hope you guys are having a great week. So I'm back today, guys, with a Dragon Age video. I'm sorry I've been away for a couple of weeks. Obviously, I really needed to recharge my batteries after everything that happened with my dad, then getting a chest infection. But recently, we finally got a release date video for Dragon Age Veilguard, and it's just lit a fire under me. Seriously, I'm very excited for Dragon Age Veilguard, which we now know is coming out on the 31st of October. It is going to be available on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and PC. We've seen a fair bit of Dragon Age so far, so we obviously got a reveal trailer back at Summer Game Fest. That did not go over well in terms of the tone of that trailer. We then got a gameplay footage obviously showing the opening mission in Manrathus, and then a release date trailer recently, as well as several smaller articles and bigger cover features at Game Informer and also Edge magazine. So we've learned quite a lot about Dragon Age Veilguard over the last coming months, and we have seen from BioWare that they have plans to release a lot more information between now and the release date on the 31st of October. And I also have plans to release quite a lot of content, a lot of lore content delving into the lore of Dragon Age in the upcoming weeks ahead. So I'm going to be busy. Hopefully I can get all these videos made for you. But what I wanted to do today is, this isn't a comprehensive covering everything that we know about Dragon Age Veilguard, because you've heard it all before, I'm sure. You've read all the information before if you're like me. But what I wanted to do today was just cover some of the key sort of features and details that we know about Dragon Age Veilguard, and I actually want to give my opinions on them. I want to talk about the things that I like and the things also that I dislike, and just give a, you know, my own sort of critique of what we know so far. I thought that might be interesting for you guys and you might enjoy hearing about it. So let's jump in with some of the key things that we know about it. Well, the first thing obviously I want to talk about today is that we do know that Dragon Age Veilguard is going to have a robust character creator, and you also will be able to carry over decisions from the previous Dragon Age games. So according to game director Corinne Bush, the ability to import your choices is fully integrated into the character creator. In the character creator, players will be able to relive their past adventures through tarot cards, and that's where you're going to learn about the context of events and what happened, and that is where you will be able to make sort of key decisions which will then carry over into the game. Apparently this is going to be the most detailed character creator that BioWare have ever made. You'll be able to choose physical characteristics such as gender, and that's going to include male, female and non-binary. You'll be able to choose your race and multiple appearance options. Also, players will get to choose Rook's background, and this is one of 6 possible different origins that will determine a faction that Rook will belong to, affecting future dialogue and socials throughout the game. And there is going to be full body customization options, letting players really be precise in terms of the Rook that they want to create. And I love this. I think this is great. I really do like it. I'm all for robust character creators. I like the idea of them finding some way to carry over your decisions from the previous 3 titles. And yeah, I'm really happy because people like to create characters that they can relate to, that they can identify with, and a good character creator is really key for an RPG. The only thing I would say with a very detailed character creator is it's probably going to take me ages to actually create a character. It already takes me like 2 hours to create a character for every RPG, and I remember with Dragon Age Inquisition, I think I created like 3 or 4 characters before I actually set on my, you know, canon character that I played through the game with first. So I almost hope that this character creator is released early in preparation prior to launch, a little bit like what they did with Dragon's Dogma 2, where they released it early. You could actually create several characters and also your companions, and then you could actually carry that forward into the main game. I would love for them to do something similar for Dragon Age the Veilguard, but yeah, we'll see. But I do like what I've heard about the character creators so far. Let's talk about the story and what we know, and the key thing that we have learned is that Solus is not the main villain, which I'm very happy to hear. I love this. The game actually starts around 952 Dragon. It's 9 to 10 years after Inquisition and Trespasser. Solus, we know at the beginning of the game, has begun his ritual to tear down the veil, which you interrupt, causing you to release two of the ancient elven gods. That's Elganan and Gilanain. Obviously, these are key elven gods in Dragon Age lore, and I'm so excited that we're actually going to get to meet them in Veilguard, and it sounds like they are going to be the main villains that we're going to have to take down throughout the course of the story. I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm very excited. I love the lore surrounding the ancient elven gods and Solus and the Veil and the Fade. I am going to be making lore content going into detail about both of these characters as well as the elven gods, so do look forward to that. I'm not going to say more today in this video because I don't want to kind of spoil it for you guys, but very much looking forward to it, and I like this choice. I think having good villains in any RPG is really key, is really important, and I actually felt Corythius as a villain in Inquisition was a little weak. He was a little one-dimensional for my liking, so I'm looking forward to being able to see them brought to life, and I'm very much looking forward to that kind of relationship with Solus, and he is such a complex character, and I'm really looking forward to, I just can't wait. I'm just really looking forward to it. I like the tone that we're getting from the story and what we've heard about it. I also like the fact that the story will center around the north of Thedas, so we do know certain key areas that we are going to be exploring, of course, including Rivain, Wisehope, the Arlathan Forest, Minrathous, and the Deep Roads. We know we're going to be exploring all of these, as well as Antiva, I think, as well. So I'm really happy to hear that we're going to be exploring the north of Thedas, because we've obviously heard a lot about these regions throughout all three Dragon Ages. Especially we've heard a lot about the Tevinter Imperium, we've heard a lot about Minrathous, obviously in Dragon Age, in Inquisition. So I'm really excited. I'm so excited to be able to go and explore Minrathous, the capital of the Tevinter Imperium. I am super interested in Arlathan, the Arlathan Forest. Obviously, it's the ancient elven capital city. There is so much history and lore there. It's so tied to the origins of the elves. It's tied to Solus, obviously, and I just can't wait. I can't wait to explore that area. And then Wisehope, the birthplace of the Grey Wardens. I am so excited to be able to explore these areas, and we haven't really explored much of the north of Thedas in the Dragon Age titles so far. Most of it's been sort of restricted to the south of Thedas, and the north is very different. So I'm very excited that we're going to get to see and explore these new areas. The next sort of key information that we have about the game, which I love and I really like this, is that the Dragon Age Veilguard will not be an open world. Corrine Bush has spoken to IGN, and she said that Dragon Age Veilguard will be a mission-based game, with the characters operating from a hub area called the Lighthouse. Everything in the game will be hand-touched, handcrafted, and very highly curated. She said that they made this decision to move away from, this open world obsession that many RPGs have, and that kind of Inquisition dabbled with, because they believe that that's how they achieve the best narrative experience, the best moment-to-moment experience. So the game will not be open world, but parts of it will have some more open sequences, offering a sense of freedom of exploration. There will be alternative branching paths, mysteries, and secrets. These, of course, will be optional content, where you will be able to go explore, find, and solve key puzzles, and of course there will be side content, side missions as well, also involving your companions, with sort of loyalty style missions as well, which I'm happy to hear about. I think this is a very good move on BioWare's part. For me personally, I felt that one of the biggest issues that Inquisition had was pacing. It had a huge problem with pacing, especially at the beginning of the game when you get to the hinterlands and it's just this big open world. There's so much to do, and not all of that exploration and content was necessarily good, and it really slowed down the pacing. And I know a lot of people that jumped off of Dragon Age Inquisition at that point because they became kind of almost fatigued with the open world style of the hinterlands. And of course, obviously with Inquisition as well, you had the constant restrictions that you had because they had the power system, so you had to have a certain level of power before you could actually then unlock more of the main story quest and progress through that. I really hated that system in Inquisition. I don't like anything that kind of stops that story pacing and forces you to grind and to go and do content that should be optional, that you might not want to do. So I'm very happy to hear that Dragon Age the Veilguard is much more mission based. They did sort of liken it a little bit more to Mass Effect 2, that it is more based around your companions. It is more sort of mission based, and I like that. I really, really do like that decision, and I think this decision is a smart one, and I think Dragon Age the Veilguard will be a lot better off for it. The next thing obviously that we know is about our 7 companions, and that all 7 companions are romanceable, so all are pansexual and can be romanced no matter the gender or race of your rook. I have mixed feelings on this personally. I am all for freedom of choice. I think that BioWare have always been very good in sort of giving players multiple options in terms of who they want to romance and also representation. I think they've always been great with that, across all of their games. BioWare have always led the charge when it comes to that. But this decision to make all companions pansexual, personally, from a story standpoint and from an immersion standpoint, personally, I'm not a fan of that decision. For me, this feels more like a gameplay decision, like to give player choice, and I get the mindset behind it, obviously. But in terms of these characters, I feel that I like it when characters have nuance to them. So I loved the fact in Inquisition that you couldn't romance Solus unless you played a female elf, and I actually liked that because I feel that it makes your companions and the characters feel more three-dimensional. They have more depth to them. They have their own preferences, and I actually really like that. And I also think it leads itself more towards more interesting replays of the game, because you're not just replaying it because you want to experience a different romance, but you also then, it forces you maybe to play as a different race, to play as a male or female, because you might want to focus on a particular companion and you kind of know what they are and what their likes and dislikes are and what their preferences are, and it makes you play the game in a way that perhaps you maybe wouldn't originally. And I think that's a really good, strong part of the BioWare games, so that it forces you to do that, and then you might experience something completely different, and I like that. So I'm not a big fan of this. I think obviously they've gone down the route of, say, Baldur's Gate 3, because it was the same in Baldur's Gate 3. All companions, I think, were pansexual in that game as well, and you could romance anyone, it didn't matter. So I'm not a big fan of that, but mostly for character writing, character development, and also sort of storytelling. I feel that it is a little bit too not realistic, shall we say. I do like the fact, though, that apparently if you don't romance certain characters yourself, they have their own preferences, so they will just romance each other, and I love that. I actually legitimately love that idea, because I loved the fact that Tali and Garrus ended up together in Mass Effect if you didn't romance either of them, and I remember that scene, like walking in on them just being really, really cute. So I like that side of it, because again, that does make your companions feel more kind of alive and more sort of individual and things like that, and they'll just carry on even without your influence. So I kind of like that. The game apparently is also going to be very heavy on dialogue. So there's going to be 700 characters in total, with 140,000 lines of dialogue that have been written. This is massive. I think even Inquisition, which is considered one of the wordier of the Dragon Age games, had 88,000 lines of dialogue. So that's going to be huge. I am very happy to hear that there is a bigger focus on story and characters and dialogue. I'm very happy about that. But what I would have to say is I want the dialogue to be good. You know, I want it to be interesting and well written. And so I'm you know, fine for all stats and everything, but sometimes stats doesn't necessarily mean a bigger, or you know, or bigger doesn't necessarily always mean better. That was the case in Starfield, where he was saying over 1,000 planets, I think it was, but a lot of those planets were very samey, were not interesting, were kind of empty. So throwing figures at me for, you know, impressing me doesn't necessarily impress me. So we'll have to wait and see, obviously, the quality of that writing. I would prefer quality over quantity every single time. Let's talk about class selection, which is a lot more streamlined in Dragon Age Veilguard. I like this. So apparently you can only select between warrior, rogue and mage. Finally, each class has both range and melee options which you can use in combat, and all three classes can actually evolve into specializations. So mage, for example, you can evolve into a Death Caller that uses Necromancy, a Spellblade, which focuses on melee attacks infused with magic, and an Evoker, which uses Elemental Fire, Ice, and Lightning magic. The Rogue can specialize into the Duelist, obviously dual wielder, 2 blades, focusing on dodges and parries. The Saboteur, which uses traps and tricks. Those are very familiar from previous Dragon Age games. And obviously Veil Ranger, which focuses solely on ranged style of combat. The Warrior can focus into Champion, which uses a weapon and shield. Reaper, which uses Night Blades to steal health from foes. That one sounds wicked to me. And the Slayer, which uses 2-handed weapons. So I like what they've decided to do with the class selection. One of the things I didn't like in Inquisition was that, you know, if you wanted to play as a rogue, you had to choose to either play dual wielding or ranged, and I didn't like that in Inquisition. Yes, they said there were 6 classes available, but actually technically they weren't, and for me it always limited your choice. I love the fact that now I can play a rogue that can both dual wield and use a bow and arrow. I absolutely love that. I can choose to play as a mage that has the option for ranged magical attacks, as well as magically infusing my weapons as well. So I'm very happy to see that they are sort of more streamlining the class selection, but giving a little bit more freedom, more closer to sort of Dragon Age Origins. So I'm very happy to see that, and this is something I'm very much a key supporter of in terms of class selection. Still haven't decided what class I'm going to play as. Like in, I think, Origins and also Inquisition, I played a rogue, and in Dragon Age 2 I played a mage. Maybe I'll check out a warrior. I do like the fact that you can actually use your shield as a ranged weapon and throw it out there, a little bit like Captain America, which sounds kind of fun. So I'm sort of leaning towards playing an elf, a female elf, because I think that would be interesting, especially when we're looking at Solus and also the ancient elven gods, and also the Veil and the Fade. I think that's going to be super interesting as an elf, but I'm kind of interested in playing as a warrior as well, but I haven't decided. Maybe I'll end up doing what I did in Inquisition, where I played like all of the classes through the first mission, got a feel for each of them, and then I basically decided off the back of that which one I was actually going to play as. So we'll have to see. I'm still undecided, and I'm still going to do more research, and I probably will be doing a class guide video likely in the week leading up to the launch of Veilguard. I will definitely be doing more deep dive into the different classes that you can pick. The next thing obviously is to talk about the combat, which is more simplified and more streamlined, and I think it's the combat more than anything that I feel very torn on. There are elements of it that I like, but there are also elements of it that I dislike quite heavily. One of the first elements that I really do dislike is the fact that you can't switch and play as your companions. The reasoning given behind this, which was sort of delved into in a bit more detail in the Edge magazine, was that by some of the developers at BioWare, or the key decision makers, were saying that Veilguard is a lot more action packed. It's a lot closer to the action. It's third person over the camera. And they said that because of that, because it is more action packed, that they felt that switching between companions was too complicated. And they were saying that I think they tested it with different players, and that people actually preferred not being able to control their companions. I'm very suspicious about that. For me, this reasoning that it's just too complicated, does that mean for the player, or does that actually mean for the developer? Was it too complicated to implement it in Frostbite? Maybe that's what they mean. I'm not sure. But personally, being able to switch and play as your companions has always been intrinsically Dragon Age, and it's one of the elements that I always loved in Dragon Age, was that I could play and switch between my companions and play as them at any time. And that was also fun, because if I was playing as a rogue, and I don't know, if I got a little bit bored by that, or I wanted to switch things up a little bit, I could actually switch to one of my mage characters and play a little bit, as a mage, to get a feel for that too. And it was fun, and in certain situations and scenarios it may be better to switch to a different companion. So for me, I'm sad to see that this has been removed as an option. I also think as well there are many other examples of very action-packed RPG games that allow you to switch and play as other companions, other characters, that work very, very well. I think Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the perfect example of this. It is a very action-packed, action-heavy game. Majority of the time it is like that. It is very real-time action, but you can also pause the action or slow down the action and queue up commands and abilities. But also you can switch between the different the different characters at any time too. Play as Tifa, play as Barret, and it works perfectly. It is so seamless, and I didn't find it too complicated. I didn't find it too difficult, and some of the fights in Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth are absolutely insane, and I didn't find it too difficult. So I think their justification there is a little bit wishy-washy. It's weak. Let's just say it's weak, and I really didn't think it was very good. A very good justification for it. The other thing that I'm not happy about and do kind of dislike is that you actually have fewer abilities that you can utilize at any given time. So Rook has access to 5 abilities. There are 3 main abilities that you can get, that you can equip at any time, plus 1 ability you can get through a rune, and you also have access to a super ability. And then your companions actually have 3 abilities that they can equip, 5 that they can unlock, but they can only equip 3 at any given time. This, for me, this decision here to have more streamlined abilities, this for me feels like a downgrade for me. In Inquisition, you could actually have 8 mapped abilities at any given time, and this was the same for companions as well. And so you just had more options that you could play with, and it worked quite well, and even if you were playing it on controller, you could switch quite easily. I think it was with the right trigger. So I suppose in a way having less abilities that you can equip will encourage more of a focus on build crafting and really synergizing your abilities a little bit more. As a result of it, maybe you're going to have to make more careful decisions in terms of the abilities that you're going to use as well. And obviously it is definitely more similar, I suppose, to Mass Effect to a degree, but even in Mass Effect you had quite a lot of abilities that you could still select from. So I don't know, we will see how it feels obviously when you get access to it. I suppose each of the abilities are going to have to be really good and really unique so that you feel that all 5 of those abilities are worth using, that you're going to get. And having a super ability is an interesting thing as well. I'm interested to see what that looks like. Maybe that's a wicked finisher or something like that. So we'll have to see. Obviously, tactical camera has been replaced by the combat wheel. I am personally okay with that. I actually like being closer to the action in games. I always felt that the tactical camera, it's very more similar to sort of CRPGs as a tactical camera. And I suppose, in Origins, that was really, technically speaking, a CRPG. That's where BioWare's Origins come from, obviously, with Baldur's Gate. But they haven't really made a CRPG really since, their Baldur's Gate Dragon Age Origins days. Every game after that has obviously been a lot more action focused. And I like being close to the action. I like being closer to what's happening, because that does make me feel more immersed in the situation. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the combat wheel, because I like the combat wheel. As a massive, huge Mass Effect fan, I'm a fan of the combat wheel. It still allows you to pause the action. It still allows you to gain tactical information on enemies if you select on them, so you can still see buffs and debuffs and elemental weaknesses. So there is still a degree of tactical gameplay there, but obviously you can't pause the action, look from the top and get a lay of the land, so it doesn't allow you to do that. So I suppose it does, some people will probably most definitely miss that, especially if you do prefer that in Dragon Age Origins. But I don't have an issue with the combat wheel. And one thing I do really like a focus on in Veilguard is the focus on combos and ability detonations with your companions. And I like the fact that you can give them orders, that you can tell them to use particular spells or particular abilities, and you can actually synergize and combo with these and set up some nice sort of combinations. So I love that. It's one of the elements of Mass Effect that I gel with the most. I absolutely love it in the combat. It does make you feel more like a leader in that way, because you are sort of pausing the action, queuing up companions to do certain things. So you're still giving them instructions, and then you get to see everything kind of play out. And if they're anything like the combos in Mass Effect 3, they're going to be really satisfying. So I like the whole, combo detonation system, and I'm excited to see it in Veilguard. I'm looking forward to seeing what it has to offer. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, obviously, was accessibility. There was a lot of information on this through the Game Informer article. It talked about the fact that there are going to be 3 difficulty modes, which will be Storyteller, Adventurer, and Nightmare. But there will actually be a 4th mode, which is called Unbound. And this will let you customize everything from parry timings to invincibility. You can change how wayfinding helps you in the game, aim assist, including a full auto aim option, and combat timing and parry window, which is split into easy, normal, and harder difficulty. You can even make enemies hit harder or less. You can give them more or less HP, and apparently you can also make yourself completely invincible. Now, I don't like the fact that you can make it so that it's impossible for you to die, because this is a game. Like, there should be some degree of challenge in any game that you play. How far that challenge goes should be very much, up to the player in terms of the different level of difficulty that you want to play. And people that want a quite extreme challenge will obviously be taking on Nightmare mode. But yeah, the fact that you cannot die, I don't know. I suppose that's for people that just kind of want to play the story and don't really want to worry or stress about the combat, about the gameplay, and would prefer not to be able to die. I am all for accessibility features. I've always been a huge fan of accessibility in video games. I don't see why you wouldn't support that. Why wouldn't you want more people to be able to connect with the game, be able to play it and complete the story? Because that is why we are playing Dragon Age. It is for the story and for the companions. That's what it's always been for. I have never played Dragon Age for the gameplay or the combat. I've always played it for the story and the companions. That's obviously where its strength has been. But it's a choice. That's the key thing. It is a choice. I know there are a lot of people that feel very strongly about that ability to be completely invincible, but I don't hate it. Myself personally, I will not be using it. But but it's a choice, and I think players should be given accessibility options so they can connect to the game and play it how they want, and I'm very much a fan of that. So there's a lot really that we've learned about Veilguard, and majority of what I've heard I like, but there are a few things that I'm not a big fan of and that I do dislike, obviously, that I have talked about in this video. So what do you guys think of all these key features and details in Dragon Age the Veilguard? Let me know your thoughts on these things in the comment section below. What do you like? What do you dislike? Let's get a discussion going, but of course, as always, let's stay civil. Let's respect each other's opinions. Let's not throw useless or needless barbs at each other. Let's get a discussion going, but respect each other in the same way, because I know a lot of people feel quite strongly about many of these features. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear what you think in the comment section below. So I am planning a lot of content in the subsequent weeks going ahead. I have got a bit of a schedule plan in place, and I'm hoping I can stick to it, but I'm definitely going to be making lore videos on Dragon Age. I'm definitely hoping to be doing a Dragon Age Inquisition story so far video, including the Trespasser DLC, to get you all caught up for Dragon Age the Veilguard, especially if you haven't played Inquisition, or if you played it like 10 years ago and you've forgotten most of the events of the game and the story. Hopefully I can get you guys caught up in preparation for Veilguard when it releases on the 31st of October. But that's it. Those are my thoughts and my feelings on what we've heard about the game so far. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you as always for watching the video. Thank you as always for your patience. I know it's been a few weeks since I've been, uploading a video, so thank you of course for all your support and your kind words. It really does mean a lot, so thank you all. You are all awesome. Of course, special shout out to my Patreons and channel members for always going the extra mile to support the channel. If you do like the content here, do consider becoming a Patreon or a member. It really does help. It really does go a long way to support what I do. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, enjoyed listening to me ramble for a little bit of time. But yeah, hope you guys are good. Hope you guys have a great week, of course. Take care, and as always, happy gaming. I should go.